and we're back. The Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. How you doing today, Carter?
I'm doing great, man. Had a busy day at work. Just, getting back, getting unwound now. Excited to sit down, chop it up with you. And, man, it's been beautiful weather here in Ohio. So can't complain with that other than like the basic tornadoes that hit last night. So had to make sure my kids, my 6-year-old was a little freaked out by the sirens and everything like that. So I had to make sure she was okay. But other than that, man, just living, just living. How about you?
Good deal, good deal. Hopefully everybody's okay down there, down your way. And
Yeah, it was mostly just a bunch of rain and wind and shit. There was some hail. Apparently, there might have been some, funnel clouds, north of us or whatever. But all in all good. But it is what it is, man. It's springtime in Ohio. You're gonna get some tornado warnings.
right. No, and everything's pretty good up here in the north. Great weather. Took in some t-ball action tonight, so
Yeah, how's he doing, man?
it's t-ball. We're
Yeah,
it's like herding cats. So outside of that, nothing too major. And let's get this show started. As
sounds
the
good, buddy.
thumbnail proceeds to say, I watched some tape on BEAUX Collins, and I did not like what I saw.
Yeah, man. So Bo is kind of outside of maybe Riley Leonard, one of the big names that is joining the Fighting Irish this offseason from the transfer perspective. Um, kind of, he was a 4-star recruit out of high school. Pretty number 3 in the state, was a real kind of big time recruit for Clemson. Has underperformed for the most part. I think he only had like 500 some yards last year on like 40 catches. So he has yet to join. I think he probably is about to join the Notre Dame program here as soon as his semester is over. But he's a lot of the hope and dreams of the wide receiving core at Notre Dame lied on BEAUX Collins being kind of, taking that next step and being a big time receiver in college football and being somebody that they could count on, like a Chase Claypool or somebody like that. And, when you watch the film, man, I watched a lot of his film this week, just as we talked about it personally off air. And I just, it leaves a lot to be desired, man. So, hopefully, I don't know who's coaching receivers down there at Clemson, but they haven't had a big time receiver since probably T. Higgins.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
So I don't think their receiver development over the past, he's working on his second contract, so he's been in the league 4 or 5 years. Receiver development hasn't been great at Clemson. So I guess the silver lining, if you're a Notre Dame fan, is hopefully the receiver development at Notre Dame and the receiver coach and the offensive coordinator and the offensive staff there is a little bit more up to par to take somebody with raw talent like BEAUX Collins. Because when you look at it, man, BEAUX Collins, 6'3", 210. He's got size. He's got speed. The guy can really play. He just hasn't really developed into a college wide receiver. I think most of his high school career was probably spent being, the best athlete on the field. I mean, when you're the number 3 recruit in your state, number 10 at your position, at wide receiver nationally, that you obviously have some skills and some tools there. So hopefully for Notre Dame fans and for everybody, banking on BEAUX Collins kind of being, one of the cornerstones of this wide receiving core, hopefully he can get in this summer and really kind of develop into a top tier wide receiver.
Right. And With all that being said, the Notre Dame wide receiver coach is Mike Brown. He was with Dan Bruck at Cincinnati. Had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Was an analyst at Michigan. Then he went to Delaware. Then he went to Liberty, and he was the wideout coach in 2019 to 21. And then he was the pass game coordinator in 22, wide receivers coach, and then last year he spent last season with Luke Fickell up in Wisconsin. So, and with all of that being said, I mean, BEAUX Collins has got 1 year left to try to figure this thing out and try to get to the NFL. I can't.
Yeah, I'd have to look at when he came out. He might be able to apply for that 5th year because he's, I believe he's a 4th year right now. But regardless of that, I mean, the good things you see when you look at his tape, his route running is not polished. He's raw running routes, but he has the physical tools. He's big, he's fast. I believe he's got good ball skills. His hands seem to be at least above average. So there are a lot of tools you can work with. It's just from what I've seen on tape, he's not creating separation. He's not a technical route runner yet. I believe he could become one if he's taught the right technique. And on top of that, he's an average blocker at best. I take wide receiver blocking probably in a higher regard than most people. That's just my Urban Meyer background, I guess. But he's not a strong blocker, and he struggles to create separation even against teams that he should be a superior athlete against. And a lot of that could be scheme. A lot of that could be quarterback play. Could be a number of different things. However, I'm not seeing him running wide open a lot. I mean, he is from time to time, but it's not as frequent as you would like to see somebody with his athleticism and skill set. So he's got to come in, and he's behind the 8 ball already because he had to stay and finish his semester at Clemson, so he didn't get to participate in spring football. I am sure they've sent him the playbook. He studied it. He's been working out. He's been doing everything he needs to do. He seems, from what I've read, that he's a good kid, good head on his shoulders. So I'm not real worried about any off the field stuff or any lack of work ethic. It's just he's going to come in this summer, and he's going to have to catch up quick. The good news is I don't think he has to be anything special to make this wide receiving core a little bit better.
Right. And one of the big things is, especially with what's been going on at Clemson the last 2 years, shaky quarterback play. Not from DJU. I'm talking Klubnik. And then their offensive line down there. And sorry, Matt Luke, but when I watched the Florida State game, they probably played 8 guys. They swapped out tackles, guards. The only thing that was the mainstay was the center, and them guys just got bus tossed. They got kicked out of the club, in which Florida State's an elite program, and they're going to be really good. So
yeah, I mean that's definitely. You have to understand what you're watching, and Florida State last year, especially up front on defense, and they had a good offense and everything like that. So when you're watching that tape, that was one of probably the best 4 teams in the country when healthy. We can argue all day if they should have been in the playoffs, but outside of that, I mean, he was going up in the Florida State game, at least he was going up against good corners. Clemson was completely overmatched on the defensive line. So you're going to see that, and the offensive line play has not been great, and Dabo has not relented his offensive duties to Lincoln Riley's brother, Mike Riley or
Garrett.
Anyways, Garrett Riley, that's it. So their offense has been very subpar, I don't know, the past 5 years, really. DJU included. He was, he didn't get the best opportunity. But outside of that, I mean, I think you're dealing with a kid that's going to come in, and he has been told majority of his life that he is elite. And I promise you, Clemson told him he was elite when they recruited him. And I promise you, his first year at Clemson, they told him he was elite. And then if they had any kind of coaching at all, they tried to break him down and develop him. And it just didn't work out. Now, hopefully he can come in here. He can get developed. He can be more of what he should have been out of high school, because after 3 or 4 years in a program, he should have been more of an impact on the offense than he was last year.
Right. And I think he's dealt with the injury bug in the past as well a little bit. So, and the worrisome thing with me is that his biggest games at Clemson came against like Charleston Southern, came against teams that they were overmatched from the get-go. So I think the jury's still out, and I don't think it helps that Riley Leonard missed time, BEAUX Collins missed time, and those are two huge keys to the offense and how the offense is going to run this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, dealing with injuries or not having your top guys in there for spring ball is definitely, puts you a little behind, where you want to be going into summer and fall camp. Now, the problem becomes for Notre Dame is assumedly brought this guy in to be at least wide receiver 2. I mean, minimum, that's why you brought him in. Now, if he comes in and he's more of a project than he is a ready-made guy, you're talking about a wide receiving core that is A, very, very young, and B, not really that highly thought of, I guess. You're talking about Jaden Thomas and Deion Colze being 2 of the top guys. They're fine pieces, but they're not anything special that you're going to see on Sunday. And then obviously you got Greathouse, who's more of a slot guy, plays a little outside. Outside of that, you got a couple more. You got a couple more transfers in Chris Mitchell and Jaden Harrison, both from smaller schools. Jaden Harrison, more of just a kick returner, special teams guy. He might get some play on offense. Chris Mitchell, I mean, great stats at Florida International, but Florida International is not playing Notre Dame's schedule. So we'll see, and maybe that's, a step up for him. He develops, and with better quarterback play, better, athletes around him, he can flourish. But if you're talking about BEAUX Collins coming in and being more of a rotational piece, maybe a wide receiver 3 or 4, and not being that wide receiver 1 or 2, you've got to start asking questions about, okay, can this Notre Dame offense actually move the ball through the air? Because Riley Leonard looked good at times throwing the ball, but he's not he's not Jaden Daniels with the ball in his hand. He's not even Carson Beck throwing the ball. He's not Quinn Ewers. Like, he's not going to be that guy. So you're gonna lean heavily on the ground game, which is what they've done for years. They're gonna have great running back play. I saw the 3 running backs that I think are really, really talented, good running backs. And the offensive line is going to be fine in the running game. My biggest concern for the offensive line is in the pass pro, just because you're replacing Joe Alt and you're replacing both tackles. And there's just a lot to question at that point. But I think they'll be fine. Run blocking is always, at least in my experience, always easier for offensive linemen, because you can just get off the ball and your assignment and you just go and you hit people, which is what they like to do. So I don't think the run game is going to be much of an issue, but if you have to rely on that run game 60 to 70% of your offensive plays, defenses are going to know that, and they're going to key on that. And if you can't get separation, if you can't get open against one-on-one coverage, it's going to be long days. So I don't know. I mean, looking at Notre Dame's schedule, we went through it the last week or the week before. Their schedule is favorable a lot, but there are a couple stretches. I mean, obviously, game one against Texas A&M, and then a stretch later in the season where you're going to have to play some really good teams. And the only hope is that over the course of the year, by the time you get to that late stretch, you've developed an identity on offense and an identity throwing the football that you're not worried about if it's 3rd and 6, can we throw it?
And the other thing too, not that we're trying to pile on here, but I think the Notre Dame fans out there have to realize Mike Denbrock is inheriting a pretty much dry cupboard, and Notre Dame also went out and paid $1 million in NIL funds to a kid that threw 3 touchdown passes last year. So let's keep that into account. And Denbrock's offense at LSU had Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Jaden Daniels. You have a Heisman Trophy winner and 2 first-round receivers. So
He had a bunch of talent to work with.
And the expectation that Notre Dame fans are putting on Denbrock, I know he's been here before, but the expectation that if you think you're going to lead the country or be top 5 in offense, to me, looking at the some of the parts that are coming back, I think they'll be lucky to crack the top 20, and they might crack the top 20 just because of schedule alone, because they're going to have some games where they're going to beat up on some people and probably run the score up.
Well, but the only way they do that is if they can move it through the air. Because even if they're beating up on teams that are a lower tier or not quite up to par, if they're having to do that on the ground, unless you get a lot of explosive plays with the running backs, it's not going to translate to big numbers. So, and I don't think, no, I mean, the good news is I do think Denbrock is a very good coach, and he's proven that time and time again. I think he's capable of finding out where his weapons are on offense and utilizing them. It just so happened last year he had weapons at quarterback and wide receiver, where this year that might not be the case. He might not. I mean, he definitely isn't going to have the weapons like he did at LSU. I mean, there's no Malik Neighbors, there's no Brian Thomas, and there's definitely no Jaden Daniels on this team right now. So the good thing I'll say about him is I've seen him for a long time in the industry, and he knows how to utilize his strong points. So I think offensively they will be effective and efficient. I just worry about when you're facing some of those tougher tasks like an A&M, like a Florida State, like a USC. I worry about if they have the firepower on the outside right now to do what you're going to have to do to win the game in crunch time. Like last year against Ohio State. I mean, they played an excellent game. They controlled the game defensively. They ran the ball effectively. But at the end of the game, Ohio State had better athletes at receiver and quarterback that, I mean, I'm not here to sing Kyle McCord's praises, but he drove them down the field. And Notre Dame's athletes missed plays where Ohio State's athlete made plays, right? They had an interception that could have sealed the game, didn't make it. Emeka Egbuka gets hit over the middle on 4th and a million, makes the catch. So that's the difference in those types of games when you're going up against elite talent. And if you don't have the athletes on the perimeter specifically, it's going to be very difficult to win those types of battles. And BEAUX Collins was brought in to add an athlete on the perimeter that could potentially be that type of weapon. And the more I watch him and the longer it takes him to get there, the more and more I question whether or not he is that type of athlete, or maybe he is a 3-star transfer that underperformed at Clemson, and that's his ceiling.
And I just feel like the big issue is going to be all the time missed on the offensive side of the ball between Riley Leonard and Bo. Um,
Yeah,
so
I mean, yeah, that's 100% a concern. I think anybody that is downplaying that is looking through Kelly Green colored glasses. That's definitely something that will. Unfortunately, Notre Dame doesn't have the luxury of ramping up into the season. They're starting game 1 at Texas A&M. So week 1, they got to be ready to go. If they had Ohio State's schedule where the first 4 weeks you could roll out your walk-ons and probably win, it'd be a different story. You could get them moving then. So Marcus Freeman and the staff at Notre Dame has a big task ahead of them. They have to get everybody on the team into midseason form by week 1. That's just what you have to do. Otherwise, you're going to go to Kyle Field, you're going to lay an egg, and it's going to set your whole season back from the start.
100% agree. Moving on here, talk a little recruiting. Watched some tape on Will Black, the offensive tackle out of Connecticut, and man, that guy is going to be a player. I thought he was a baller. I thought he moved really well for an offensive lineman, ran well. Um,
Yep.
he's going to be a guy that I believe is going to be a big time, probably left tackle or right tackle at University of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he had great feet in finishing blocks. I mean, almost every play on his highlight tape ended up in a pancake, and in which I get it, talent and competition dictate that a lot, and being the biggest kid on the field, but I feel like his pass setting ability was really, really good advance for a high school level kid.
Yeah, so the first thing that jumps out on his tape is he has a great first step. So with tackle, especially in pass pro, that first step determines your success. So he has a great first step. He's an athlete. He played hockey, basketball, and lacrosse. So he's not just a football player. He's an athlete. He can get out there. He can move. The more I watch him, the more I am reminded of a lot of the tackles that have come through Notre Dame. And they did a great job, identifying talent. He's the number 25 offensive tackle in the country, so he's not a huge time get. Number 1 player in Connecticut, which is big. But he's a 4-star, borderline 3-star. But the kid has size. The kid has athleticism. He's right around 295 right now. They'll probably get him over 305, 315. And he looks. I don't think that I'm being insane when I say this, but he looks like a potential first-round pick. He looks like the next. Joe Alt is probably a bit much, but he looks like he could develop into a Joe Alt level player. And so I think they did a great job getting him. It's still early. They still got to get him to sign on the dotted line, as I say with recruiting, especially nowadays. I know Georgia just offered him a couple months ago, so there's still opportunities for other schools to swoop in. But yeah, no, you watch the tape. He looks like exactly what Notre Dame wants at tackle, a typical offensive lineman that Notre Dame will get in, develop, put some weight on, get stronger, and put him in the league. And that's one thing that has never been an issue at Notre Dame is they're going to get some offensive linemen now.
The next recruit that I took a peep at that I am excited about is the James Flanagan kid, the tight end out of Wisconsin. For a 6'6" dude, he can move at the tight end position.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the ball skills were there. I thought the catching traffic was there. I am really excited for this kid to hit campus.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at him, he's 6'6", about 220. I mean, the kid moves. He's got great ball skills. And my biggest thing that jumped off to me, because I watched some of his tape earlier this week, and it was the second time I'd watched him, and the kid is not afraid to block, and he actually gets in there, and he has some solid technique for a high school tight end. And so watching him do that tells me a lot about him as far as what he wants to do. Because I've watched a lot of high school tight ends that are glorified wide receivers, right? They're all about catching the football nowadays, which is great. I mean, you need that. But again, he's a multi-sport athlete, track and field and hockey. He's a big time athlete in the state of Wisconsin. And it's funny when we bring up recruiting. I a lot of times look at kind of where Notre Dame gets their big recruits, and they have skill guys on that are 4 stars, 5 stars, things like that every year. I get that, but a lot of times you're getting these tight ends and offensive linemen, which is what Notre Dame consistently puts into the NFL. So, I mean, you look at the tight end history at Notre Dame: Cole Kmet, Kyle Rudolph, Tyler Eifert, like the list goes on, and it's the same thing. And so James Flanagan looks like he is cut from a similar cloth. He's going to come in here. He's, like I said, 6'6", 220. They'll get him up to 230, 240, and he'll be able to block like an extension of the offensive line in the run game. He'll be able to chip and get out on routes in the pass game. He'll be able to be split out and still have the speed to, go up against a safety or an outside linebacker and get separation. He just looks like an all-around athlete. He's one of my favorite recruits so far in this 2025 class.
Right. And the next guy I want to throw out there was Justin Thurman. I thought the kid looked explosive. He fits the he's a little bit bigger than Love at the running back position.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6 foot, 180 pounds, and I would say once he hits campus, they'll probably get him at about 205. Probably put 25 pounds on him.
Probably, yeah.
In between, if he comes early in spring ball and fall camp, real explosive. I thought he was really good at pressing the point in some of those high school run schemes, setting up his blocks, and I thought he had great vision for a high school kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you watch him, he's just got quick twitch, man. He can move. He's fast. He can move side to side. He can change directions. He can accelerate quickly through the hole. One thing I really liked about him is he seems like a pretty decisive runner. A lot of times, young backs, especially smaller backs, kind of try to slow play it and pick their holes and try to letting the play develop is not a bad thing. But I like when he sees the hole, he doesn't hesitate. He's got quick decision making. And he just looks like an athlete. And anytime you can get a 4-star or 5-star out of the state of Florida, that's never a bad thing. He's, comes in at, like you said, about, I mean, maybe more like 5'11", but so we'll call him 6 foot because that's what they'll put in the program. And he's also a great track runner. So he's a sub 11 100-meter dash guy, ran like a 10.8 at States this year. So he's got great top end speed as well as acceleration. 100 or 812 yards, 14 touchdowns last year on the ground, picked up another 200 yards and a couple touchdowns through the air. So he's shown the ability to catch out of the backfield. He looks like a really solid running back that I think will be a good player for Notre Dame. He does, like you mentioned, the comparison to Love. I like that comparison. And he's the type of weapon that you can move around. So as long as he shows good ability to catch the football, you can put him in motion. You can line him up at receiver and maybe motion him into the backfield or motion him across formation. You can do different things with him as a weapon to really spread out and open up the defense and kind of put yourself in a good position. And so, no, I think that was a big get. Again, I always say it, but these are all great recruits that we talk about. I mean, we're never going to talk about the 2-star that signed on signing day because they needed to fill a gap because that guy's probably never going to play. These are all early commits. They're all 4 or 5-star level type guys, top 100 recruits or top 25 in their position. So they're the guys that you want. Now it's still only May. We have to make it till at least December. So, don't get too overly attached to any of these guys. I mean, luckily, I think he's one that you can probably feel pretty comfortable about. There's not a whole lot of interest. You got the Auburn, Florida, some other big SEC schools that are interested in him, but he seems pretty committed to Notre Dame. So that's great. And he seems like he's going to be a really good back. I think he has the opportunity to come in and impact the offense pretty quickly.
Right. And moving on to a coach at LSU that is in the news, Brian Kelly, because I've been following this situation. The LSU fans are going wild over the offensive lineman that took a visit, or he might be a D lineman, but a kid from Louisiana took a visit to Ohio State here recently, and the LSU fans are freaking out about Brian Kelly. And not only did he do that, he gave an interview where he doubled down and said he's not offering play for pay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that, I mean, LSU fans are going to freak out. That's what they do. So I'm not hugely worried about that if I'm Brian Kelly. I mean, kid took a visit to Ohio State. Who cares? Like, if he's a player that is of the caliber of LSU players, there's probably other schools of that caliber or higher that are interested in him. So I don't care that he's from Louisiana. Louisiana kids leave LSU all the time or go elsewhere all the time. He doesn't sign every kid to ever play football in Louisiana. However, the one thing that I think was interesting is that interview that you're talking about. And first off, let me start off by saying, fuck Brian Kelly. He's fake. His entire persona is fake. Everything he said in that interview was a fucking lie. And I don't want to hear about shit that, like, stop complaining, bro. Like, I'm so sick of this bullshit of, we can't pay as much as other programs. Fuck off. Yes, you can. You just don't because you guys don't know how to do it. And tell me more about your family. Like, get the hell out of here. I'm so sick of Brian Kelly in general. But outside of that, putting aside my personal feelings for Brian Kelly and how much of a scumbag and just bold-faced liar he is in the media, I don't hate what he said. I just know it's a lie. So I'm all for, we're not paying for players. We're not paying, you're going to come here to be part of the program, to get developed, to go on every fucking thing Dabo Swinney has said for 15 years. Gotcha. Now, here's the problem I have with it. That's cool when you're recruiting against Colorado or when you're recruiting against Memphis. But if you're recruiting at LSU's level, which is at least what I thought LSU's level was, is you're recruiting against Georgia. You're recruiting against Bama. You're recruiting against Ohio State. Guess what those 3 programs do? Develop players and put them in the NFL. So if I can get developed and be put in the NFL by LSU or Georgia, and Georgia's going to give me a bag, why wouldn't I go there? So it's just, to me, It's so on brand. I mean, so on brand. And it's making excuses. It tells me one of two things. Either LSU's NIL isn't up to par, so they can't pay the players, and he's making excuses, or Brian Kelly knows that his shit isn't going to work, so they're going to have some struggle years, and he's getting out in front of it by saying, no. The reason we went 8-4 this year is because we couldn't pay Will Howard $1 million. Dude, if we had Will Howard, we'd have been 11-1. Like those are the only two reasons you do that interview and you say that shit, because either that or you're just a fucking idiot. And anyways, same dude that said there's not a check big enough to get him to leave Notre Dame, and then a week later took the LSU job. So
well, your brother told a story about that. He said he was sitting. I believe Zach said he was sitting somewhere, like he was doing show prep for the Menace channel, and he got a phone call, and I think like Chris had the Brian Kelly interview up live, and someone had called him and said, I think I'm going to take the job with Brian Kelly at LSU, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute, time out.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, the dude's a snake. He's I can't even. The reason he couldn't succeed at Notre Dame is because he couldn't get around the academic restrictions, which is bullshit. Everybody knows that's bullshit. The reason he's not going to succeed at LSU is because now NIL, he can't pay players, because that's not what we're about. We're about a program that builds a culture and develops players. And we had offensive, we had Brian Thomas and Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors, and we had 3 offensive linemen go in the NFL draft. Guess what, bitch? So does everybody you're recruiting against. Unless you want to be Mississippi State, you're recruiting against the big dogs. They all do that shit too. So get your money right and pay them. And
it's wild to me that they say they can't pay for NIL, and which I haven't dug into how their collective works 100%. But
bro, it doesn't matter how their collective works. They've been paying for people far before it was legal to pay for people.
That's what I'm getting at.
The money's always been there. It's Louisiana. It is the biggest program in Louisiana. There are a handful of programs in the entire country with more support in, you're talking Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. That's about it. Texas has more money. That's about it. And it's potentially a top 5, at least top 10 program. And you're telling me money's an issue? Get the fuck out of here. Absolutely not.
And that's the whole premise on why he left Notre Dame, because he said their NIL was not where it needed to be. So he went to the academic standards, dipped in NIL money. So somebody's lying here. I know.
I can tell you who it is. It's the guy that's lied to you before.
I think Brian Kelly may be. The guy's been diagnosed with diabetes, so
Dude.
I can't take anything he says serious, and the whole it. And for these college football coaches, I get it. You have to sell your program and you have to recruit, but I don't care what anybody says. When he did the dancing with the recruit and that video came out, that is just.
I know for a fact that there are other programs in this country that use that video as a recruiting tool against LSU.
I don't doubt that. And I think it's wild that you have Brian Kelly and then you have Dabo with the gloves. It's just so goddamn cringeworthy to me.
Dude, it's gross, honestly. And it's what I hate most about some college football coaches is the college football coaches that honestly, are the most successful and the ones that I respect the most are ones that are pretty honest and true about, at least not not honest and true to the media, honest and true to themselves about who they are. When you look at these flash in the pan coaches, not that Brian Kelly's a flash in the pan. He's been a very successful coach. He was at Notre Dame for a long time. If success means winning 10 games and getting fucked by an SEC school. He was successful at Cincinnati, and he's had success. But when you look at some of the coaches that rise quickly, or like even Brian Kelly at LSU had quick success, a lot of times those coaches can't excuse me, can't sustain it because they're fake. Like, you look at the fucking boat rower at Minnesota. Like, he is a used car salesman. He's fake as fuck, and everybody eventually sees through that. And when Brian Kelly, you can put the comment up right now, when Brian Kelly went down to LSU and started talking with a fucking Southern drawl, when the dude is from fucking Massachusetts and has never been in the South in his life, that's when I knew this guy thinks that he can fake his way to success in the South. And guess what, buddy? Those Southerners, they might buy it for a minute when you're beating Alabama and going to the SEC title game your first year, but they're going to see through that shit so soon. And then your money's going to start to dry up. And then you're going to go on interviews and complain how you can't, or you won't buy players because that's not what our program's about. No, you can't buy players because people don't believe in you anymore.
And that's, there's nothing off base about that statement. And I find it really strange that Brian Kelly comes out and says that. And unless he's on the fact that he doesn't think they'll be very good. But with that being said, every LSU coach since what was his name, Jerry DiNardo, they went from DiNardo to Saban, Les Miles, Coach O. All them guys have natties. They all have natties. So,
and I will give anybody that comments on this $100 right now. I promise you, Brian Kelly does not win a natty ever at any program ever for the rest of his life. You can, my Twitter doesn't change. My email doesn't change. You can hit me up 20 years from now when he wins a natty at fucking USC or some bullshit. I promise you, he won't do it. Why? Because he's fake, dude. And players buy into that for a very limited amount of time. Players can see through that so much quicker than the media, than the fans, than everything, because they're around it all day, every day. And when this guy is preaching what he doesn't practice, and he's telling this group of players one thing, this group of players another thing, it doesn't work. That's why coaches like Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, fucking the Georgia, god damn it, why can't I think of his name? Kirby Smart. Yeah, Jesus, that's why those coaches are successful, is because they treat everybody like the same piece of dog shit. Right?
And I think a lot of times in Brian Kelly's programs, you don't have everybody pulling the rope in the same direction.
No, because they're all being told different things.
And like,
you got the offensive coaches that are blaming the defensive coaches, and you got Brian Kelly telling the offensive coaches, yeah, you're right, that defense needs to pull their weight. And then 2 minutes later, he's telling defensive coaches, yeah, the offense needs to be better. It's like, but like,
I mean,
he's fake.
His last 3 years at Notre Dame, I thought he mailed it in.
He definitely did.
And I think he was looking for a way out. And
he found it.
And he did. And I think LSU is a job that, if it comes open, I think there's a handful of SEC jobs, if they come open, you can't pass them up. And I know Notre Dame fans are not going to want to hear that, but
No, absolutely not. You're right. If you're the head coach at Cincinnati,
The problem with
but if you're the head football coach at Notre Dame, going to LSU is not a step up.
it's a lateral movement. I feel like
at best, money wise,
and
it might have been a step up, but Notre Dame would have given him that money.
I think they would have too.
But he didn't ask.
Well,
he didn't go, hey, LSU offered me this. Can you match? No, he went, I'm out, because he was trying to get out. But that's not at all an improvement in his career. And the thing is, and what people don't value about programs anymore is LSU might look, bro, it's no different than the fucking chick that's your wife or your girlfriend or whatever. And she goes, hey, this dude over here, he looks like he's got it together. And it's like, okay, go try that out. See how that works out for you. Yeah, it might be fun for a while, but he's going to get sick of your ass real quick. Whereas Notre Dame was that dude that was in love with you, and they would have been through hell with you and stood by your side. But you passed it up to go be with some dude, and they're going to get sick. LSU is going to get sick of Brian Kelly so fast, and he can go 10-2 like he did at Notre Dame, and they're going to fire him after going 10-2.
That is the other issue in the SEC, because like Billy Napier at Florida, his cooked turkey.
No, he's done.
I hate to make that judgment, but I think he's a good coach. I think they ran Urban Meyer out of there after 2 natties.
Yes and no, but yeah.
To a certain
Urban
extent.
ran himself out, but yeah. But yeah, no, they were ready to move on, except for now they miss their ex-girlfriend. But Billy Napier is definitely cooked. I mean, you just look at the schedule this year; he's got no fucking chance. That dude's gonna lose 6 games. Like it's the SEC did him no favors.
And somebody like that, like Billy Napier, which I think is a good coach.
He is.
I don't think not Urban Meyer, but I don't think Nick Saban would have hired him if he wasn't good.
No, he's a good coach. And honestly, the next program he goes to is going to get a steal of a coach, and he's probably going to be successful.
And it would be interesting to see where he ends up. And you never know. He could maybe flip the script and win 8 games. Anything's possible, but it's
I think he's got to win 10 to even save his job. And I don't think there's a chance in hell he does that.
And their schedule it's
brutal.
Yeah.
It is brutal.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I think if you gave that schedule to Ohio State, they would struggle with it.
Oh, they'd probably lose 3 or 4, yeah. Honestly.
So, it would be 50-50 games.
Yeah, and there's going to be 5 or 6 50-50 games. You're going to lose at least 2 of those.
And yeah, so I would be interested to see where Brian Kelly's next stop is at.
His next stop? It's a good question. Maybe I don't know. I mean, he's made so much money. Maybe he just gets out of it.
I think I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan doesn't pick up the phone and call him.
Bro, the Ohio enthusiast in me wants that so bad. Ryan Day would make Brian Kelly his little bitch. That would be almost as good as if Jim Harbaugh failed at the Chargers, went back to Michigan. That would be that level of good for Ohio State fans.
Well, I think, judging by some of the reports out there, I think this is Jim Harbaugh's last hurrah, and if it doesn't work this time, I don't think he's going to have the option to go back to college. And
that's he might be hit with some stuff that he's got to sit out at least a year.
I think it's going to be longer than that.
Yeah.
And the sources, those guys over there at Scoop, every step of the way, it's been slow, but they haven't missed yet. And
Yeah.
I feel like this is when the Michigan stuff comes to fruition, is going to be the biggest scandal in college sports, with it all being uncovered.
I don't see it. I mean, I've heard it, and I've been hearing it, and I know the NCAA moves slow, so there is a chance that happens. I just don't see it. It's
Because
the NCAA holds so little power now that I don't think they're gonna risk it, because they'll get hit with lawsuits. If they do hammer Michigan, that might be the final nail in the NCAA's coffin.
well, the reason why I think they're going to hammer them is because Michigan was going to get that temporary restraining order.
Yeah, it was the first time the NCAA won a lawsuit.
Exactly. And I think the NCAA turned over what they had. And Michigan said, I think we need to go back to the drawing board. We'll ride this out and play hunky-dory. And we'll catch up with you at a later date. So
yeah, that could be. I mean, I'm all for Michigan getting fucking railed. That sounds great.
So,
but anyways, off that topic. Sorry to kind of go off on my Brian Kelly soapbox there. Dude's a scumbag. Anybody who likes him, fuck off.
I don't like Brian Kelly, but the lying aspect of it is the tough part with me. So, with that being said, we'll talk a little NFL. The Chicago Bears are going to be the talk of the 2024 season.
You're talking about the NFC North champion Chicago Bears next year, right?
Well,
that's what I've been told. Anyways, I don't know.
I don't know where you're hearing that information, but
mostly Bears fans. I'm pretty confident right now. But it's that time of year. I'm a Browns fan, so I understand it.
The Bears feel like they've won the off season. I don't.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, but they play those games in the fall that kind of matter.
Damn games. Yeah, but yeah, the Bears. I mean, look, everything considered, the Bears have had a great offseason. They've improved their roster tremendously. I mean, you bring in Keenan Allen, you add a wide receiver like Rome Odunze. I mean, they've done something that they would have never done for Justin Fields, and they gave a quarterback weapons. It's amazing. And if it works out, which I'm sorry to any Bears fans listening, I don't think it's going to. But if it works out, everybody's going to talk about how much better Caleb is than Justin Fields and how it was the right move to move on from Justin Fields. And I'm not saying they're wrong. If Caleb Williams turns out to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, absolutely the right move. But if the Bears invested, I don't know, a fifth of what they've invested into weapons this offseason, into weapons once for Justin Fields, maybe, just maybe, he could have been a serviceable quarterback.
With that being said, let's just get down to brass tacks. If you are Matt Eberflus, are you starting Caleb Williams week 1?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean, first of all, I don't even know their other options. But the reason I'm doing that is because, pretty sure I've already been told by ownership that you're starting him week 1. Second of all, I'm lucky to have a job right now because I should have been fired at the end of last offseason or at the end of last season. So the fact that I'm even the coach is, I mean, that's just gravy. I should have been fired. So I'm going to do whatever I'm told, and I'm going to start Caleb Williams because my other option is to get fired now. And I'm going to get fired at the end of the year no matter what, unless Caleb Williams is CJ Stroud. And when Caleb Williams is not CJ Stroud, and when we go 4-12 or 4-13, whatever, I'm getting fired. That's just, if I'm Matt Eberflus, I've already accepted that this is my last year in Chicago.
Now, Brett Rippon and Tyson Badgett are the other two guys.
Yeah, so they literally picked up two guys that pretty much nobody's ever heard of to make sure.
Badgett was there last year. Played
I mean,
a little.
That's fine. It doesn't matter. That you could cut him today and you could pick him up after he clears waivers on your practice squad. Nobody's picking that dude up. So yeah, Caleb Williams is your day one starter. He doesn't even have to go through camp. He doesn't even have to learn the playbook. He can watch 0 hours of film like Johnny Manziel. It's done. It's over. You're not starting either one of those guys, Rippon or Badgett or, fucking Sam Darnold if you trade for him. Like, it doesn't matter.
And the offensive coordinator they brought in from Seattle, Shane Waldron, he has been credited with the resurrection of Geno Smith. I am going to disagree with that and say I bet Pete Carroll had a lot to do with that, because a lot of people forget that Pete Carroll at USC called offense and defense for a short period of time when they were really good. So Pete Carroll been around the game for a long, long time, and I
guarantee you did not call a single play in Seattle. No. Pete Carroll. Now, I'm not giving this guy that much credit for Geno Smith because, Geno Smith was a far better quarterback than he had ever been. But like the Geno Smith resurrection is interesting to me because he was good, but he's not. If I'm Seattle, I'm still kind of looking for another quarterback.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting on what they do there because they got loaded receivers. DK Metcalf, JSN. So it'll be interesting to see. The schedule's not out for the Bears. Yeah, I've seen their opponents.
Yeah, no, they don't release it. There'll be a 4-hour special on ESPN to release the schedule later this summer, and 7 billion people will tune in. But outside of that, the Bears, I do like what they've done this offseason, I will say. I think their defense is good. I think they had a good defense last year. I think they're still going to have a good defense this year. I think their wide receivers are far improved. You kept DJ Moore, you added Keenan Allen, and obviously added Rome Odunze in the draft. And then you brought in DeAndre Swift. I think they brought in at running back. So he's a solid running back as long as he's healthy. So they've given Caleb weapons. They haven't addressed the offensive line as much as I would have liked them to. I think that's something that's still going to be a weak spot for him. And Caleb Williams, when he gets pressured, he struggled a lot in college. When he faced good defenses, he struggled a lot in college. And the benefit of being at USC was you didn't face good defenses very often. When you're at the NFL, you're facing a far superior defense than college defenses every single week. So I think Caleb Williams is going to have a learning curve. I'm not going to call him a bust already. However, I think in 3 years, the Bears will be looking for another quarterback.
That is That is possible, and we are almost at the 1 hour mark. Probably after the schedule's out, we will give some more Bears stuff when free agency and all that starts heating up and practice or training camp is rolling around and going into the football season. I think we got some pretty good stuff planned. I think we might be going 2 days a week here. And also, if you like this content, please hit the like and subscribe button and tell your friends about it. And our social medias are down there, so you can stay in tune with it. So,
Yep. All the links are in the description of the show. Go follow us on all the social medias so you don't miss anything. Like and subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, PodBean, you name it. We're on it. If anybody's going to be in Columbus next week, May 17th, Yogi's on Hard Road will be hanging out there. Come hang out with us. Duke, I don't know if you're going to be there yet, but
don't know. That's
but
up in the air.
anyways, come hang out with me at least. I'll be there. We can have a drink, have a bourbon, whatever. But yeah, I mean, just like, subscribe, comment, tell us when we're being stupid, tell us we're fucking idiots. I don't care.
All right. With that being said, everybody have a good night. And that is it for the Andre Duke and with Carter Smith show.